Hello there everyone, this is probably the dumbest video I've made, and I made a challenge run where I don't touch grass. Today I'll be ranking every material in Tears of the Kingdom. I'll be ranking everything in the material tab of the inventory, so Zonai devices won't be on here, but comment if you want a Zonai device ranking. I'll be ranking the materials on fuse damage, cooking utility, and bonus uses outside of fusing and cooking. Also I'll skim through a lot of these since I don't want this video to last an hour. F tier. Pretty useless items. Alright, last place was pretty difficult to decide on because there aren't many truly bad materials in the game, but I think the Soldier Construct One Horn is the worst material in the game. Low fuse power, no recipes, and can only give you one item at the device dispenser. Yeah, these aren't very useful outside of specific shrines and the start of the game. Bokoblin Fangs are also useless, but they can be used in low-level elixirs. Pretty interchangeable with last place. I guess the Bokoblin Horn has to be down here as well, since its only use is early game fuses. Bokoblin Guts creep me out, and they're only good for early game elixirs, and I never use elixirs. Food is just always better in my opinion. Moblin Horriblin Horns also aren't very good since they are harder to get early in the game and don't have that much fuse damage. They also look stupid. Next are the Acorn, Chickaloo Tree Nut, and Sky Shroom. All heal virtually no health and have no special effects. Sky Shroom is the best due to its bouncy fuse property though. Moblin Fangs are slightly better than Bokoblin Fangs, and we might as well throw in the Horriblin Claw and Lizalfos Talon for also being low-level elixir ingredients. Moblin and Horriblin Guts are just low-level elixir ingredients and aren't that good. In general, electric resistance is a terrible buff, since electric attacks still retain their deadliest property of disarming you. This puts the Zapshroom, Electric Darner, Electric Cephalina, and Thunderwing Butterfly all the way down here. The Armoranth, Mighty Thistle, Blue Nightshade, Warm and Cool Cephalina are low-level food ingredients. They're common, but provide very little effects in the dishes they're cooked in. The green Lizalfos horn is only better than the other base-level horns because it looks cooler, and does a bit more damage. Sticky frogs and lizards have a near-useless effect. Slip resistance doesn't make you slip less distance, it makes you slip less often. Unfortunately, Link climbs so slowly that he still makes up no ground even with the less frequent slipping, since jumping still guarantees a slip. The uselessness of this effect, and that they're made for elixir, places them all the way down here. Glowing is also a new useless effect, which places the Bright Cap and Deep Firefly down here. Glowing illuminates such a small area that it's worthless, and it's only good in the depths and like 4 caves. The Summerwing, Winterwing, and Smotherwing butterflies would be good if you could actually find them. They are impossible to find. I have literally never seen a Smotherwing butterfly in the wild yet, and I'm going for every Korok, so I've explored most of the map. Their effects are actually decent, but their rarity and elixir restriction bumps them down here. Sunset Fireflies are somewhat difficult to find, but gives you a small stealth buff, which I find it's way better to use a stealth armor than to stealth elixirs and food. Finally, in F tier, we get Amber, Luminous Stone, and Opal. Amber serves as early game fuse damage, except it deals as much damage as a level 1 Bokoblin Horn, which are way more common. And Hyrule's inflation devalued them significantly, making them go from 30 rupees to 10. At least you can trade them to someone on Death Mountain as part of a side quest. Luminous Stones didn't turn out to be the huge lore thing in this game like the trailers made them look like. They lost a lot of their money value in the process, going from 70 to 20, which, holy. Finally, they have no special effects. You don't even need them to buy the Radiant set like you did in the first game. Finally, Opal. Still useless. Its special fuse does basically nothing, being a cheaper version of Sidon's Water Slash. Little money value and no extra functionality. D tier. Finally, into items that are slightly less worthless. Down here we have all the cooking ingredients. Tabantha wheat, Hateno cheese, fresh milk, cane sugar, Goron spice, goat butter, monster extract, oil jar, dark clump, rock salt, and Hylian rice. Most are only available through shops, can't be eaten raw, and are only used in special food dishes. The glowing cavefish only ranks higher than the other glowing items because it heals a bit more health. Stealthfin trout, silent shrooms, and sneaky river snails are stealth ingredients. The trout is way too rare, only being found in Lost Woods Moat. The other ones provide decent effect. Fin trout has a terrible effect, but heals a little bit more health than the other electric resistance ingredients, so it's a bit higher. The coal darner, worm darner, energetic beetle, bladed rhino beetle, rugged rhino beetle, and restless cricket are all elixir ingredients. They are difficult to find, especially the beetles, since you have to be in a beetle spawning area at night when it's not raining. Their effects are fine. The blue bokoblin horn, blue moblin, blue lizzle, blue horriblin, and boss bokoblin horns are low level fuses. Decent early game, get worse pretty quickly. The boss bokoblin fangs and guts should also be down here, since they're just okay elixir ingredients. The Octorok tentacle doesn't even have the whip functionality of Lizzletails, making it only good for elixirs. The Hyrule herb is a decent early game cooking ingredient. It has decent health restoration. Finally, the apple, wildberry, and Hylian shroom all heal very little health, but I can't help bumping the apple up a few spots for being iconic. I still love that Link can chug 10 apples after falling off a cliff and be perfectly unharmed. C tier, decent items with some functionality, but gets outclassed by other materials. More elixir items, yay! Hightail lizard, hot-footed frogs, and fireproof lizards are decent for elixirs. Speed up is a really good effect, but fireproof is pretty useless since it's only useful in the Death Mountain caves and Death Mountain depths. Bunch more cooking items. Sorry I'm grouping together a lot of stuff, but a lot of these are very similar, and they don't really warrant completely separate spots. Here we have the Silent Princess, Fortified Pumpkin, Sun Pumpkin, Swift Carrot, Stambulb, Spicy Pepper, Cendelian, Swift Violet, Stamella Shroom, Rushroom, and finally, Hydromelon. All of these are decent cooking ingredients, with some having pretty good cooking effects. Octoballoons are pretty niche items that are fun to play around with, but don't have many practical uses. Next is a ton of monster parts, again. Black Bokoblin Horn, Blue and Black Moblin Horn, Blue Lizalfos Horn, Lizzletail, Blue Lizalfos Tail, Captain One Horn, Fox Fingernail, Hinox Toenail, Like Stone, Hinox Horn, Fox Fang, Obsidian Fox Fang, Hinox Tooth, and Blue Boss Bokoblin Horn. All are decent weapon fuses, but nothing particularly noteworthy. Good in the mid-game. The Key Swing is a nice early game arrow fuse that, before you get better bows like the Dusk Bow or the Zonite Bow, increases your arrow's range by a lot. Even has the Wind Gust effect. The only thing holding it back is that it gets outclassed by the other wings later on. I'm just going to wrap all the lesser dragon parts here. The scales, fangs, and claws, and spikes of the dragons get far outclassed by much better dragon parts. They don't do as much damage, they look worse, and don't have as good of a cooking effect. Outside of collecting the claws for one side quest and the rest for having to complete materials inventory, they are much worse than the horn. This is worse by the fact that dragon farming is a huge pain in the ass in this game that I hated every step of it. Most because of how much time you need to waste to do it. Flint is a filler drop in ore deposits that can create a one-time use fire starter if struck by metal. It's great in the early game for creating fires, but once you get Fire Lizalfos horns and other fire weapon fuses, it becomes useless. The King's Scale is a plot item that is only a material because you need to shoot an arrow with it. Outside of that, it seems to act as a more powerful splash fruit when used as a weapon. There might be a special property that it has, but I don't use it because you can only have 5 at a time. The basic Zonite charge isn't that good. It restores very little battery, has no fuse damage, cannot be cooked, and gives you very few items from device dispensers. That being said, it's helpful in a pinch if you need some extra Zonite energy. Topping off C tier is the Bright Bloom Seed. It's completely outclassed by the Giant Bright Bloom Seed. It lights up a very small area, making it worthless in the depths, but in dark caves it can be pretty helpful. Their main advantage over giant bright bloom seeds is that they are much more common, but they just aren't as good. B tier. Good items with decent uses. First, we have the remaining guts: the Gibdo guts, Lynel guts, Gleeok guts, Fox guts, Molduga guts, and Hinox guts. These ones make much better elixirs. They can be used for money and look a lot cooler. The Gibdo guts are especially good since you can use them to create critical elixirs. The Sun Shroom, Chill Shroom, Razor Shroom, Iron Shroom, Endura Carrot, Endura Shrooms, and Fleet Lotus Seeds are really good ingredients for their effects. Endura Carrots are the only rare materials here, but they can be consistently found on Satori Mountain and Fairy Fountains. The palm fruit and Hylian tomatoes are super good for health restoration, and Hylian tomatoes can be used to make pizza. Sankey Carp and Ancient Arowana are cool looking fish with a little bit of health restoration. I believe Sankey Carps can only be found at Link's Dream Home Pond, making an extremely rare item. I don't want to put it this far down, but the Star Fragment is useless outside of armor upgrades. The fragments, while much more common than Breath of the Wild, are super rare and have very little value outside of money and armor. If fused to a weapon, it makes a light rod, which functions as a temporary bright bloom seed. The projectile cannot affect enemies in any way, though. It's only good for exploring the depths, but it isn't even good at that. The Clock Frond is good for making wind weapons, but it's terrible for food and outclassed by Queen Gibdo wings and Gleeok wings. Haru Bass, Corsabi Honey, Razorclaw Crab, Ironshell Crab, Bright-Eyed Crab, Staminoka Bass, Chillfin Trout, Silverfin Trout, Mighty Carp, and Armored Carp are great for their effects and health restoration. They're quite good, but not amazing. The Bird Egg, Raw Meat, and Raw Bird Drumstick are early game health restoration. They can be cooked into extremely valuable meat skewers that can restore a ton of hearts, but they are not as powerful as later meats. The Chuchu Jelly and Splash Fruit serve the same purpose, having a one-time use water splash that clears out sludge and is effective against fire-based enemies. Once you finish up the Zora quest line, though, all the sludge disappears, rendering that part of the item useless. At least Chuchu Jelly can still be converted into its elemental variants, which makes it quite good. Wood is still extremely useful for creating a campfire, but that's it. While a one-time use campfire is certainly good for waiting out rain or getting back to daytime, it's not too useful. The Hylian Pinecone can be used to create a discount Revali's Gale. It's very niche, but does have uses to bypass certain puzzles. Don't mind the fact I'm committing arson in the background. The Silver Bokoblin Horn, Black Boss Bokoblin Horn, Black Lizalfos Horn, Red and Blue Lynel Saber and Mace Horns, Lynel Hoof, Soldier Construct 3 Horn, Metal Like Stones, Blue, Black, and Horriblin Horns, Blue Hinox Horn, and Blue Hinox Horns are all very good for damage. I especially like how Lynel Horns are based off the Lynel weapons from Breath of the Wild. These are great horns for fuses. Also, the Silver Bokoblin Horn looks like crap. Like, seriously, why did they add, like, the little dangly thing? Muddle Buds are extremely fun to mess around with, mostly because you can get monsters to fight each other. What I don't like is that the Muddle Bud timer seems way too short for the enemies to get a good fight going, and they barely end up scratched. It also seems to mess around with the enemy AI, making it attack very weirdly and not fight its friends very well. Cool concept and not perfectly done though. Finally, we have the Elemental Keese Wings, Aracuda Wings, and Gibdo Wings. They all make arrows fly further, deal good damage, and the Keese Wings have elemental damage. They're pretty good. A tier. These are really good items that you use quite frequently. At the bottom of A tier is the Mighty Banana, Mighty Porgy, and Armored Porgy. These food items are the best in their effect classes, with great health restoration and being extremely useful. I mostly just put the bananas up here because banana, though. Zonite is a new mineral in this game, and it's pretty useful. Why does my script say it can be used to butt Nazis? It can be used to buy Zonite charges and crystallized charges from forge constructs, but its best use by far is auto-build. If you have enough Zonite, you can build whatever you want without the materials necessary. Unfortunately, it's terrible for buying crystallized charges, as it's 3 Zonite per 1 charge, and you need 100 charges in order to get 1 battery upgrade, so it's a terrible deal. Raw primate and raw bird thighs are the second tier of meats, and heal a sizable portion of health. Primate is better because it's more common. Gleeok wings and Molduga fins are rare, high damage arrow fuses that make arrows fly extremely far. They are great late game arrow fusions. Our final large group of monster horns, the Silver Boss Bokoblins horn, Silver Lizalfos horn, Elemental Lizzle horns, White Lionel Saber and Mace horns, Soldier Construct 4 horns, Captain Construct 3 horns, Silver Horblin horn, Silver Moblin horn, Silver Lizalfos tail, the Elemental Lizalfos tails, the Black Hinox horn, and a Stalnox horn, and a Blue-White Fox fang. These are insanely good late game weapon fusions that deal insane damage. White Lionel horns and Blue-White Fox fangs are extremely deadly, making them amazing boss killers. I wish the White Lionel Saber horn kept the OG Lionel weapon theme though. Raw halberds are just way too rare to be practically used. That being said, they heal a stupid amount of health. The only issue is I think only Elden Ostriches drop them, which are only found on Death Mountain. Tireless Frogs are great in stamina recovery elixirs, but they lose a lot of use once you have max stamina, or you have enough money to afford Melania beds. They aren't extremely common, which bumps them down quite a bit. Alright, it's time for lesser hardy ingredients, the hardy salmon, hardy bass, and hardy lizard. These are all very uncommon compared to other hardy items in S tier. That's all that's holding them back, their rarity. Hardy has an amazing effect since it heals all your hearts and gives you extra hearts. And typically they're pretty rare, but these are just way too rare. The Puffshroom is a Depths exclusive item that is this game's form of sneak strike chaining. Since that technique has been patched. It creates a large smoke screen, making you invisible to enemies while inside it, turning Link into a true ninja. Love how fun Depths items are to play around with, but the Puffshroom is just way too situational to be any higher. The Ruby, Sapphire, and Topaz are extremely versatile as weapons. Fuse them to a weapon and you get a first tier elemental rod. Fuse it to a wand and you get a tier 2 elemental rod. And fuse it to an arrow, well, you basically get a bomb. These are so valuable in combat, plus they can be used to farm money, although they don't sell for as much as they did in the first game, likely to incentivize their use as weapons. These are super useful items. The Fire Fruit, Ice Fruit, Shock Fruit, Fire Choo Choo Jelly, Ice Choo Choo Jelly, and Electric Choo Choo Jelly basically functions as the game's elemental arrows from Breath of the Wild. Because of this, they are extremely good. You can set up traps, rain hell, or one-shot certain enemies with them. And the fruits are extremely common to find across the world, so it's unlikely you'll run out. These items are so versatile I had to put them up here. Large Zonite is amazing for upgrading the battery. Sadly, that's about it. By having a ton of Zonite energy, it's extremely useful, since it allows you to more easily build whatever you want. They can also be exchanged for large Zonite charges, which are great on their own. The item itself doesn't do much, but it gets you some really good items. The Ancient Blade is this game's ancient arrow. It functions the exact same, being a one-time use weapon that destroys one enemy, but you don't get the enemy's drops. While one-shotting most enemies is good, you don't get any of the loot afterwards, making it extremely impractical unless you can't kill something chasing after you. Also, the lack of guardians makes Ancient Arrow's use of guardian farming a lot worse. The Molduga Jaw is infamous for being in the strongest weapon combo in the game, which does a ton of damage. Outside of this, it's just an extremely strong weapon fuse, but the use as its game's strongest weapon puts it all the way up here. Finally, if we get the Key Cybele, Fire Key Cybele, Ice Key Cybele, Electric Key Cybele, Octorok Eyeball, and Aracuda Eyeball. These create homing arrows, which Do I need to explain why that's so broken? Homing arrows are extremely good, since they can almost guarantee a headshot as long as you aim it near an enemy. You can even perform some cool combat techniques like keys orbiting. They're just so useful, and they aren't even that rare. S tier, finally the best of the best. At the bottom of S tier is the raw gourmet meat. Heals a lot of health when cooked, but is a lot more common than raw whole birds. Just kill some stuff in Hebra, and you'll have a ton of meat. It's just not nearly as good as the other stuff in S tier. Giant bright bloom seeds are great for lighting up the depths when you haven't gotten all the light routes, but once you do, they lose a lot of their value. At least they light up a huge area, making them amazing when attached to a vehicle in the depths. Diamonds are most valuable for money, but they can be used as an okay weapon. I wish it had a bit more fuse damage, but it's a great way to get a ton of money. The big hardy truffle, big hardy radish, and hardy radish are the best hardy ingredients in the game. They aren't that rare, heal a ton, and can be extremely useful. You want to have a lot of these going into a big fight. The big variants are a lot rarer, but give you a ton of extra hearts, making them great before a boss fight. The dragon horns are extremely rare, but extremely good for elemental weapons. They deal a ton of damage and each have a special element. I'd rank the horns type as light, fire, ice, and then lightning. The healing power isn't the most practical, since it only heals a quarter of a heart each hit, but it looks awesome. Fire lacks what you'd think fire would do, and just kinda looks flashy. Ice is great for stunning enemies, and lightning is just broken. Insane damage, disarming enemies, and stunning them. What's not to like? The Captain 4 Construct Horns are the most powerful Zonai fuse, making a Zonai weapon fused with one extremely powerful and looking awesome. Even without the Zonai weapon buff, it still does a ton of damage, making it a great weapon to have. The Gleeok horns have a special property to never run out of elemental juice. Every other elemental weapon has 4 uses before it needs to recharge, which is kinda stupid because there's an easy way to bypass it, but Gleeok horns don't have this. They will keep hitting your enemy for elemental damage, and will do a ton of damage in the process. Its one drawback is that they're only attainable from the hardest enemy in the game. The Gibdo Bone is a terrible weapon. It deals 40 damage, but only once. Its real value is as arrows. 40 damage, and it's relatively common, it's a relatively common drop from a standard enemy. This one use doesn't even matter. The one use thing doesn't even matter, since arrows are already one use. When paired with a multi-shot bow, Gibdo Bone arrows can do some insane damage against one enemy. The Silver Lionel Horns are some of the most dangerous fuses in the game. 55 damage is a lot, and is in single use. These things can shred through even the toughest of enemies. The only issue is that you need to go through a Silver Lionel to get it, which can two-shot you even with max health. The reward is worth it though, as this horn can kill basically anything, and if it's attached to a high damage weapon, nothing stands a chance against you. The Mace Horn is the same, but slightly less base damage, with the bonus that deals twice as much damage to Taluses, frogs, and other rock-based enemies. In second place is the Bomb Flower. Rip the Bomb Rune. These things are so useful. Bombs have been historically amazing in Zelda games. In Tears of the Kingdom, they do insane damage, but you can have a ton out at once, and they don't have a timer. They aren't the most common, but if you need to, you can explore the depths, because they're extremely common in the depths. You can do some really cool stuff with them, and explosions are always fun. Finally, in first is the Fairy. If you've played the game, you know why. In this game, anything and everything will kill you. Everything has more health and more damage than Breath of the Wild, and there is no infinite revive. Mipha's Grace. So fairies are the only things saving you from dying in a tough fight. These things are mandatory early game to do anything involving combat and exploration, as any enemy can tear through the health bar in one hit, so having a safety net is always nice. I don't know why I'm even explaining why they're so good, everyone already knows why. Anyway, that's it for this video. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed. If I did this right, there should be a poll in my community tab asking what you guys want my next ranking video to be. Anyways, have a great day and see you guys next time.